Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the March 2025. My goodness, already. Sno-Isle Genealogical Society meeting. Hello to everyone here at the Wickers Building in beautiful downtown Alderwood Manor, and to everyone online, thank you for coming. For those people here, if you did not sign in on your way in, please sign in at the front as you head out, so we just know how many people have been showing up and all. Um, we got a great presentation tonight, but I am gonna go over a couple of things. Will try to keep it as quickly as possible. Everyone who knows me is now laughing, but I'll do my best. First, for any new people here, the Sno-Isle Genealogical Society, or what we call ourselves SIGS, is a all-volunteer, not-for-profit charitable organization dedicated to helping people with their family search and their genealogy research. We are able to do this from donations and memberships, and if you get value out of it, we'd love to have you join us. But our content, our services are pretty much all open to anybody. So do not hesitate to stop by. In addition to this meeting, the first Wednesday of most every month, we also have a coffee clatch on Zoom every Monday, or most every Monday. The third Wednesday of each month, we have a Zoom evening meeting, which is called the Tool Shed, talking about hardware, software, and techniques. And we also have our library here at Humble House in the Heritage Park in Linwood, open on Thursdays and Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and the second Tuesday of each month. So definitely stop by. Love to have you. If you want to get more updates on what we're doing, we do have an emailing list. You can sign up for it here in person. You can go to our website and ask to be added, or you can send us an email at askus@snoislegenealogy.org. Happy to send that out to you. Don't worry about getting spammed and a ton of stuff. We're too busy to send you a lot of emails, and we're too lazy to sell your details to a Russian syndicate. So you're in luck. We're just the right amount. We also have a Facebook page, an Instagram account, and in addition, we have a Facebook group. You do have to request to be a member of the group, but you don't have to be a member of the society to be in the group. And it's small, but it is growing, and we do have conversations out there. So please join in. Tomorrow starts Roots Tech. If you are not familiar, Roots Tech is the premier sort of genealogical conference supported by the Family Search and folks and in Salt Lake. But during the pandemic, of course, they did it online, and they just keep doing it online. So there's 2.5 days of conferences. Go out and Google or Bing Roots Tech, or go to Family Search and look for it. And great content. That starts tomorrow, Friday, and a little bit on Saturday. Also wanted to mention that our friends at the Sno-Isle library system have a program called, I think it's called Reads Together. And this year, everybody's reading a book called The Accordion Eulogies. It's an interesting book by a local author about searching back in his family's history, going back and trying to understand how things have cascaded down through the years. As part of their ongoing communication or discussions about that, they've asked us, along with a lot of other people, to do presentations, talks, and things of that way. And so in April and May and a little bit of June, right now, we're probably going to be doing 11 to 12 presentations. The first one, I believe, is April 9th, although you should check. And that will be me doing an all online of our Being a Great Ancestor, which I did little over a year ago here. We'll be doing presentations in Stanwood, Lakewood, Smoky Point, Darrington, Granite Falls, Lake Stevens, Briar, and we're talking to Coopville up on the island. So go to the sno-isle.org library site and check the calendar for that if you'd like to attend. Finally, just wanted to mention that we are starting, Brenda, if you want to come up, we are just starting to head into our season of elections. You know, about 2 years ago, coming out of the pandemic, since then, we've really done a lot to revitalize the organization. It was starting to slide before the pandemic, and we were having trouble with membership and other things. And since then, we've really turned things around. We've gotten more members. We need to grow a little more, but we're doing good and doing a lot of content. I wanted to personally reach out to everyone who might be interested in running or volunteering. This year, we're really trying to make it easier for people to understand if I wanted to volunteer, what would that look like? If I wanted to be an at-large board member, what would that look like? And what would an officer role be? Because a lot of people see some of us, Jerry and Corey, spend a little too much time, but I just want to assure you that 90% of what you see Jerry doing is not the treasurer's job. So I want everyone to feel like they can contribute. And I will tell you, I find that I get so much more out of organizations, not just this one, by volunteering. You come to know people and all. Our nominating committee who will be taking nominations at the April meeting include Sue Boyd and Brenda Sanchez, who's going to just jump in here real quickly. And so I want to thank them. So Brenda, why don't you sneak in here? Yep.
Oops. Gee, if I come back here, I can't even see anybody. Usually I have a little foot still. Anyway, good evening, everybody. Pat and I are part of the nomination committee, and I just wanted to get up and talk about being enthusiastic and maybe putting your name into the hat to run for an office or share an office. Our group is very friendly. If you want to if you want to volunteer to be on a committee, if you have ideas, everything's welcome. Being an officer, being an officer is not as bad as it sounds. We're pretty relaxed about how things go around here. There's not usually a lot of business that needs to be put into committees and voted on. So anyway, it's like no pressure by saying, you're president or vice president. Am I telling the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Corey does.
But if you want to run yourself ragged, you're free to.
I already did that. I was president like for 3.5 years. I think Phyllis outdid me with 5 years being president. But anyway, I want to encourage everybody to put your hat in the ring, your name in the box, whatever it takes. If you have any questions, you can call me. Humble House is where we live, part-time. And all our board meetings are on Zoom, so you don't even have to, leave your home to be part of the meeting. Let's see, we do have, I wanted to mention one young man, his name's Finn. He comes on different Saturdays and volunteers, does some data entry at the library. Anyway, that's kind of fun. Hi, Sue. Stand up so everybody can see you. So anyway,
Great.
I think that's about it. We're going to get to our program, but
Yep.
I want to thank Corey for everything he's done to revive the organization, and everybody else that's worked overtime to keep things together. Anyway, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Brenda. And yeah, she didn't specifically mention it, but Finn, who's coming in and doing that, is in fifth grade. Fifth grade. So, he's not, in fact, we do have a couple of people who come in and volunteer, excuse me, who are not even members. They get other joys out of it. The other one is much older than fifth grade, but so sorry, I did want to get through that. Let's get to our meeting. Again, we're welcoming Craig Gowans. Craig is a member. He's the recording secretary at the moment. He's been on the board. He's helped with websites and various things, but he is a wealth of knowledge on genealogical DNA, and just genealogy in general. And as he likes to say, it's a hazard of being the child of two history teachers. That's just what happens. So I'm going to turn it over to Craig.
Okay. Can you hear me okay, Gabby? I just turned on the mic. All right. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be talking about ruling out DNA matches rather than ruling them in, and I'll explain what this all means. But it's a strategy for filtering your DNA matches for unknown lines where you have very little knowledge. Is this not advancing? Okay, so DNA and genetic genealogy are very powerful tools in validating your paper trail that you've already created through all of your research and uncovering more of your ancestors beyond your current most distant known ancestors. More specifically, the most important aspect of DNA matching is usually not a specific DNA match, but the network of shared matches with a particular match. Closely related known matches and the shared network of matches with that person can confirm other relationships from a specific common ancestor and be used as guideposts to find other matches related further back on that particular line. So to show you what I'm talking about, we're going to look at a little family tree here. I have tested my mother and all 8 of her siblings who lived to adulthood. I also had the opportunity to test her first cousin once removed, my grandfather's last surviving first cousin, because my grandfather's father was the first child, and this cousin's was the 10th child, her mother. So she actually is younger than some of my aunts and uncles. Any shared matches between this first cousin once removed, whose initials is SAR, and the DNA tested children that I've done, these 9 DNA tested children, anybody that matches them should fit into one of 3 buckets. They have to be either another descendant of Mary Ann and Benjamin Franklin together as a couple, or they have to be related through Mary Ann, but not Benjamin, or related through Benjamin, but not Mary Ann. Okay? Now, related through can mean it's also from another relationship. So suppose Mary Ann had a child before she married Benjamin, that would be related through her. But it also means anybody related further back in time, through Mary Ann's siblings, through her aunts and uncles, her grandparents, all the way back. When you find those shared matches, when you compare and find shared matches that are in common with these two sides of the family, you are ruling in those people as being related on this line. That's what ruling in means. So let's look at another example. One of my ancestors on my dad's side, her name was Lucy Smith, and she had a relationship with Arminus Dobbins, producing a son named Edward. Now, Edward had many children, two of which were Zadie and Mamie. AJK and RK are my grandmother's last surviving siblings, and I was able to DNA test both of them. They're both now over the age of 90. And from Mamie's sister Zadie, CSG was tested by his daughter-in-law, and she's made his results available to me. Lucy, though, was never married to Arminus. She had an affair with him. That's what produced Edward. Her husband had died a few years earlier at the end of the Civil War. He was killed by bushwhackers. His name was Martin Levacy, and together, the two of them had 8 children. From those 8 children, I have managed to find over 80 DNA matches. Anybody who is a match, a shared match, I should say, between any of those 80 people and any of the 3 people on the other side of the tree has to fit in 2 buckets because this is a half relationship. They have to be either another descendant of Lucy, including through any other relationships she may have had. Could be through Martin, could be through Arminus, could be through a third person. Or they have to be related through Lucy further back in time. Again, any shared matches from either side of these trees are being ruled in as being related on this line. So that's the definition of ruling in. Now, what if you can't rule in because you don't know enough about a line to have a match to use as a person to use for ruling in? In both examples, I had a known DNA tested cousin or a DNA match who I could easily trace back through records to a known common ancestor. These known matches can act as a pivot point to create a match list of shared matches to investigate to figure out how they're related to you. Barring special circumstances, which endogamy or pedigree collapse, the shared matches will follow the 2-bucket or the 3-bucket pattern. They'll always be one of those 2. However, what if you know so little about a line you don't have any known cousins on that line? Or you don't have a DNA match that you can figure out being attributed to that particular line that you're wanting to research? That's where you might have to turn to ruling out. So I'm going to give you an example of a case that I solved in my own tree back in about 2016 or 2017 using this ruling out method. This is my paternal grandfather's maternal grandfather, so my great-great-grandfather, James Morris. His paternal grandparents were a complete unknown. We had no idea who they were. We know that he married a woman named Mandy Ferris. We know that his parents were William P. Morris and Sarah Lawrence. We have lots of information on the Lawrences, and special note for, we mentioned Roots Tech coming up. One of my cousins through the Lawrence line works for Ancestry.com and will be giving Ancestry.com's presentation of all the new features coming at Ancestry. And I think that's on Friday, that presentation. But we had very little information about William and his parents, and there was a good reason for that. According to my great uncle, William was killed in a robbery of a store that he was a clerk at. He was born in 1844 and died in 1869. He was only 25 years old, 3 days past his birthday. James was only 2 years old at the time. So he never actually even knew his father that well. And Sarah was pregnant with a second child who was born 6 months after William passed away. So there was no family information being transmitted down. So how do we find out who William's parents were? Well, we do have a direct male line here. We have from James to William, and we're trying to find the Morris line further back. Morris is a very common surname. So to make sure that you're getting the right Morris family, Y-DNA would normally be something that you would want to try to pursue, because male-only lines carry the Y-DNA. This direct male line, though, posed a problem with James. You see, he had 7 daughters and 1 son. The 1 son had 2 daughters. There is no Y-DNA available for James. Now, I mentioned he did have a younger brother. I have pursued looking down that line because that younger brother did have 2 sons. One died in his early 20s, not having any children that we know of. The other one had 2 sons, both of whom died without having any sons that we know of. So there is no Y-DNA that I can attribute to my particular Morris line. So we're going to have to use autosomal DNA in order to solve this. All right, so we did have a few DNA testers back in 2015 when this problem was solved. So starting with the tree for William Morris, the one that we're trying to find his parents of, we have his wife, Sarah Lawrence, and James, who married Mandy, and then 3 of their children have had people who have DNA tested. So my great-grandmother, Bertha, her son, my great-uncle, he was tested at Ancestry DNA, and I've transferred his results to MyHeritage. The only boy, he had a daughter who had a daughter, and she has been tested at 23andMe and transferred her results to MyHeritage. And then Aunt Ollie had a son who has a son that has also been tested at Ancestry DNA. Now, using my great-uncle's DNA and these other cousins to try ruling in really wouldn't work, because in addition to getting all the Morris people, you're going to get all the Ferrises and you're going to get all the Lawrences. Does everybody see why that's the case? Because we don't have any DNA that isolates just the Morris line. We have people that only isolate to the Morrises, the Lawrences, and the Ferrises. And this poses a problem because Mandy's parents had 68 known grandchildren. Think about that. She also had an uncle who was living in the same county who had also had a very prolific number of descendants. Sarah's parents had 62 known grandchildren. And it gets worse. I know of 6 marriages between descendants of the Lawrences and descendants of the Ferrises, with this one being one of the 6. It's a nightmare. So ruling in does not work in this. The pool of matches to investigate would be polluted, so to speak, with so many matches that are not from the Morris line. So this is where we come to ruling out. We're going to start using methods of exclusion. We create the pool. We're going to create a list of all the matches of my great-uncle H. Gowans, and we slowly are going to extract from them matches on the known lines. So we're going to pull out all the people who are in the Gowans family that we know of that are DNA tested, remove them from the match list. Then we're going to do the same thing for the Ferrises. Pull them out, leaving just the others. And then we're going to find all the ones that we can attribute to the Lawrence family. Pull them out. What's left in theory, by pulling out all those other lines, what's left are more likely to be Morrises than anything else. Does everybody understand why? I mean, unless there's some cross endogamy going on, the people that are left are more than likely going to be related through the Morris line. When this was done in, like I said, 2016, 2015, whenever it was, I had exactly 8 people who met 2 conditions. They had to be a over 20 centimorgan match, which is my kind of baseline when I do clustering. And they also had to have a tree. 8 matches is not much to go off of, but it was enough at that point to start finding out the guideposts of where William was related to. So the match at the bottom of the list was related to the guy at the top of the list. The guy at the top, the highest match, was the great uncle of the person at the bottom. And the guy at the top had a great grandmother with a Morris surname, Kate Morris. These 5 matches all had in their tree a guy named John Red Morris. These are people I have no idea who they are. They just have the Morris surname. And then the other match, he is a shared match to the guy at the top, but not to anybody else in the list. He also had a private tree, which meant that I had to contact him directly to get information. But he had a large enough tree that he was willing to help me out, and I was able to ask him things, and he responded. So let's start gathering kind of what we can get out of these trees into kind of a whiteboard. So we're going to start with William Pinckney Morris, born September of 1844, died September 1869. Born in Georgia, died in Arkansas. His wife was Sarah Lawrence. They were married about 1866. We have never found a marriage record for them. And Sarah was born in Chattooga County, Georgia. We also found from these trees this Kate Morris that we don't know who she is. Kate Morris, according to census records, had a very wide range of births. She was one of these people where she aged more than 10 years in a decade. Born in between 1844 and 1849 in Georgia. When I located her marriage record to her husband, whose last name was Newsom, she was married in 1869 in Floyd County, Georgia. Now, when I'm doing these sorts of things, I like to have a county map handy for the locations to see kind of how these places are related to each other. In this case, you also want to try to find one that is contemporaneous to the time period, because lines do change, counties are created, occasionally counties are done away with. And that actually came into play in this case. So I found an 1860 county map of Georgia to use. Chattooga and Floyd County are neighboring counties to each other. We also have John Red Morris, who was born in 1819, so would be old enough to be William's father. He was born in South Carolina, and he was married in 1844 in Cass County, Georgia. Now, May 1844 marriage, my guy was born September 1, 1844. Doing the math on that, we're thinking maybe shotgun marriage here, because that's not enough months. Cass County, Georgia, though, this is why you want to look at contemporaneous maps. You look at a map of Georgia today, you will not find Cass County. Cass County does not exist. It was later renamed Barlow County. And Barlow County, Cass County, also is a neighboring county to Floyd County. So if you look at a map, an 1860 map, Floyd County is there in blue, in between Cass in yellow and Chattooga in red. So let's see if we can find more about this John Morris, because I mean, that's interesting that born 1819, he could be William's father. Let's find him in the 1850 census. So I looked and looked and looked in Floyd County, not there. Cass County, not there. Chattooga County, not there. But there are counties surrounding it, and sometimes it's a good idea to look in those. Boom. I find him in Gordon County in 1850. Gordon County is that one in green that I just highlighted. So it is also connected, it's neighboring Floyd in Cass County, and is separated from Chattooga just by a little strip of land. In the 1850 census, John has a wife, Elizabeth, and he has daughters, Emily, Mary, Georgianne, and Ari. So my William's not in there. We also don't have that Kate, who we know was born between 1844 and 1849. So no William, no Kate. So we keep looking in the census records of Gordon County to find any other Morrises. So we advance a few pages. Who do we find? Her name is either Elvira or Elmira. We can't tell from the handwriting because it's unclear. And her last name is Morris. She has a 54-year-old woman in the household named Sarah Perkins. And she has children in the household, John, Mary Jane, Catherine, William, and Millard. We have Catherine and we have William. William and Kate, the Prince and Princess of Wales, have made their appearance. Because I know that's what you were thinking with the name William and Kate. The question is, could this be my William P. Morris? Part of it depends upon that letter next to his name. What is that letter? Let's take a closer look. The census transcribers, I have seen this written as William P., William T., and William I. But let's look at the letter of the other person in the household, Sarah, who has a different surname. Do you think that that name is Sarah Turkins or Sarah Erkins? Or is it more likely Sarah Perkins? Those two letters look fairly similar. But just to be on the safe side, I looked at this census transcriber's handwriting on other pages to look at other names that very clearly had to be what we're understanding them to be. And so I found the name Trout and Thomas. That's how he makes his capital T's. Then I found Philip and Polly. That's how he forms his letter P's. Didn't find the capital I anywhere else, but I think those P's in Polly and Philip make it pretty conclusive that that William, that letter next to his name, is a P. So we're looking pretty good here that this is my guy. So I tried to find Elmira Morris, because I mean, here she is alone in the household. What's happened? We try to look up her marriage records, and lo and behold, I find a marriage record in January of 1842, which makes it very much not a shotgun wedding, given that my guy was born in 1844. And it's transcribed as Elminor. And you can see in the handwriting, it's not very clear, but we have a William Morris marrying Elminor Perkins. Elminor Perkins marrying William Morris, and notice the location, Cass County, Georgia. We have the good location, we have good names here, we see the pattern. So is William P. Morris the son of William and Elmira, Elminor? Looking good. Is the elder William Morris a brother of John Morris? Is that why we're matching all those matches from John Morris? And is Sarah Perkins the widowed mother of Elminor or Elvira or Elmira, whatever we end up deciding her name is? That would seem to be a logical conclusion. So let's kind of test this out and build out a tree of the family and see if we can find more matches to confirm this theory. So we start with William, and we're now pretty sure that Catherine Kate is his sister, and that his parents are probably William and Elvira. We have the supposition, oh, and we have two good DNA matches descended from Kate to kind of back up that William and Kate are probably siblings. We have the supposition that John Red Morris is a brother of William Morris, and through research was able to find that John Harvey Morris and Prudence McCarter were John Red Morris's parents. Through John Red Morris, we found 5 good DNA matches in that list. We also had that other guy that was a shared match to the highest match from Catherine, but was not a match to the Morrises. Well, there's a good reason why. When I contacted him and asked him, do you have any Morrises or Perkins in your tree? He had no Morrises, but he had a Perkins. It turns out Elmira probably had a sister whose name was Lucy Ann Perkins. And this guy was a DNA match through Lucy. And that he had Lucy's parents as being David Perkins and Sarah, and he didn't know the name. And that's kind of where things stood back in 2016 or whatever when I started this. Then the DNA testing revolution happened and more people started testing. And that creates opportunities for you to find more good matches to help solidify your research. Remember, William and Kate had other siblings. 2 of them were John H. Morris and Millard Morris, whose first name was actually Rufus. I can see why he went by Millard. From them, all of a sudden, once the revolution occurred, we had 3 good DNA descendants from John who tested. We had 1 from Rufus Millard. So that kind of further solidified that William is in the right place, that they were of the right size DNA matches to be the relationship to my great uncle. So we're pretty solid there. John Red Morris's family, somebody in that family got the testing bug, like me. They started testing people left and right. Those 5 good DNA matches turned into over 40 within the matter of about 4 years. However, John Harvey Morris, he had a second wife. After Prudence died, he remarried. He married a woman named Catherine Hubbard. I started finding descendants of John Harvey Morris and Catherine Hubbard, who are DNA matches to my great uncle. So this further solidifies the connection that John Harvey Morris was my William P. Morris's grandfather. This is further solidified by the fact that John H. Morris, we couldn't find any record of what his H stood for, but I'm betting it's Harvey. He was named after his grandfather. And on the Perkins side, they also kind of got the testing bug, not quite as bad as the John Red Morris people, but we have 35 good matches from Lucy Ann, because Lucy Ann was, like my Lawrences and Ferrises, rather prolific in having children. So notice I took away the dotted lines connecting John Morris to William Morris and Elmira to Lucy. I'm pretty confident to say that this is where William fits. So we started off knowing nothing about William's ancestry, and lo and behold, we have 2 generations more on his father's side and 2 generations more on his mother's side, except for the grandmother, Sarah. We don't know her surname. Until I conversed with another one of the descendants of Lucy Ann Perkins, who had found their marriage records. And it presented a little bit of an issue. The marriage record said that her name was Sarah Hicks. Okay, that's good and well. Problem is that Elmira was born in 1821 and Lucy in 1822. The marriage record was from 1840. Sarah is the second spouse of David Perkins, not the mother of Elmira and Lucy Ann. So Sarah does not belong in the tree, and the actual mother I've not been able to uncover. Have to go back even further in time to the 1820s, to North Carolina. Haven't found any records to match up with my guidance. But that's still quite a bit of information that was gleaned just from using this methodology. So let's look at another example. Earlier, I showed you how I had tested my grandmother's last two surviving siblings. And I used that as an example on the Dobbins side. Well, now I'm going to use a ruling out method on her, on the father's side, the Kendrick side. So this is kind of the chain of Kendricks pretty far back in time. We have a very good sense of what the Dobbins family is, the Gaylor family, the Fawcett family. But James Cannon Kendrick, all we knew was his wife's name was Mary. She appeared in 2 censuses, and we have a Bible record of her death in 1864, but no maiden name information. For Cannon's father, Martin, we know absolutely nothing. We barely have any records indicating Martin existed. But we know that Martin was the child of Abel Kendrick and a woman named Judah, and DNA evidence has kind of now proven to a reasonably certain degree that Judah was a member of the Cannon family. The thing that's always confusing and confounded a lot of researchers is that there was also in the same area a Judith Cannon who married a John Kendrick. And it turns out that Judah is Judith's aunt, because they are in a different generation, through Judah's brother Russell had a daughter that he named after his sister. And the John Kendrick, I wish I could figure out which John Kendrick it is, but there are about 4 of them in this area that it could be. I haven't been able to narrow it down. John is just too popular of a name. So we're going to use the same method. We take the pool of matches that we have found for my great aunt and my great uncle. We pull out the ones from the family lines we know. We pull out the Dobbinses, we pull out the Gaylors, we pull out the Fawcetts, and we pull out the very few Cannon people. There was a much smaller number of DNA matches for that, but that makes sense given how far back in time that is. So theoretically, anybody that's left has to be related through Abel Kendrick all the way up at the top, or has to be through Martin's unknown wife or Cannon's wife, Mary. So everybody understand why that has to be a mix? That's still a lot, but the good news is that the Kendricks, we could actually, I should have shown this, we were able to pull out, I was able to pull out more of the Kendricks because Abel did have brothers that several of their children were engaging in pedigree collapse. We had a first cousin marriage in there who had a child that then married a second cousin in the Kendrick lines. So triple shot of Kendrick DNA, we match those people actually fairly decently. And they were just a few counties over from the county where my dad was born. So we did have a good sense of being able to pull out some of those. But that still left us a pretty good amount of matches. I still managed to find some clusters in those sets of matches. So these 2 previously unknown clusters emerged after looking through trees, trying to find common places, trying to find common surnames. One of them is now up to 55 DNA matches who are all descended from a couple named William Doster and Margaret Haney, who were in York County, South Carolina, and later moved to Wilkes County, Georgia. The other cluster is over 70 DNA matches, but a lot of those are small And they are presumptively descended from a man named Moore Matlock and Emily Powell. Now, notice how far back the dates are for Moore and Emily. They go way back. That's why there's a lot more, is that the most recent common ancestor couple is further back in time, and they've had more time to create more and more descendants. So let's go back to this little snippet of the tree and what we know about where these people were at. Abel and Judah started off in Virginia, moved to Union County, South Carolina, and finally to Hall County, Georgia, where Abel died, and then Judah died a few years later in neighboring Floyd County. No, not Floyd County, Forsyth County. Martin, we know he was born in Union County, South Carolina. And after that, we don't know. I've not managed to find any other record of him. But we know that he has to be Cannon's father because we know he's connected through Abel Kendrick through DNA. And he's the only one of the male children of Abel who cannot be accounted for. All the others had children and necessarily exclude Cannon because they had children too close to Cannon's birthday. By process of elimination, Martin has to be it. And we also have the additional naming pattern because Cannon Kendrick named his eldest son James Martin Kendrick. Cannon Kendrick and Mary, Cannon was born in Tennessee, and as a very young man in 1836, he's listed on a tax list in Hardeman County, Tennessee, which is kind of in western Tennessee. From Hardeman County, they moved a bit. They moved to Tippah County, Mississippi, followed to Marshall County, Mississippi, to Conway County, Arkansas, to Izard County, Arkansas. Now, notice I have Izard listed with stone. They did not move for that. They didn't cross a line, the line crossed them. They lived in the part of Izard County that was made part of Stone County when Stone County was created after the 1870 census. So considering the geography, once again, looking at the maps of what the county lines were at the time, Union County, where Abel and Judah Cannon were at, borders York County, where that Doster cluster was centered. Most of Moore and Emily's children went directly to Tennessee from Virginia, and their descendants are pretty much were in the Tennessee area. They never went to Georgia. They never went to South Carolina. So this posed some interesting opportunities for theories to explain stuff. Martin's wife would be of the right age to have been a daughter of William and Margaret Doster. And they also had that close proximity of being in a neighboring county in South Carolina. So my current working theory is that Martin's wife was a woman with the last name Doster, first name unknown, and was the daughter of William and Margaret Doster. Still trying to find paper research to back this up, but that's my working theory, and the DNA evidence is looking pretty solid. The descendants of Moore and of the Matlocks were in Tennessee, where Cannon would have been married in about 1833. Cannon's wife, Mary, therefore, my working theory is that she was a granddaughter or great-granddaughter of Moore and Emily Matlock. Trying to do research now on them, trying to track down as many of their descendants to see if I can find somebody that has a Mary that they don't know what happened to. So those are my working theories that I'm working on right now. Those are two of my active projects trying to figure out. So here are some tips for using this ruling out method of filtering the matches. Ancestry helps you out dramatically in that they now tell you your DNA matches, whether they match to parent 1 or parent 2. And if you've figured out whether parent one or parent two is your mother or father's side of the family, that helps even more. So if your top match is your first cousin on your mother's side and it's labeled parent two, you know parent two is your maternal side of the family. For Ancestry and MyHeritage, use the color dots to start marking your family groups, labeling which families they belong into, especially those that correspond to your 4 grandparents. This is where those of you that are familiar with the Leeds method that we've talked about before, if you're not familiar with it, you can Google the Leeds method for DNA. It's a methodology of trying to categorize or cluster your matches to correspond to your 4 grandparents. Even if you're adopted, this method works. You want to create a list of all of your DNA matches and put them in a spreadsheet. That way you have a copy of it for posterity's sake, just in case something happens to the DNA testing company, because 23andMe, for example, has been kind of teetering on the edge for a while. But then you can create a copy of that spreadsheet each time you have a project that you're trying to do a ruling out on, and start marking people off the list that you can rule out. That if they're on the other side of the family, so if you're looking at this line on the father's side, you can automatically cross out all the people that are on your mom's side. And then you can cross out whichever grandparent it's not on that side. You just keep doing this, and by doing this, you eventually, over time, are ruling out all of these people, and your list becomes more and more relevant to the line you're wanting to work on. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so for each match in that spreadsheet, if they have a tree in another column, I would record the surnames that appear in their tree and record the geographic locations of their ancestors in the time frame that you're looking for on that line. Because if you start having surnames in common and you start having geography make it to where the sperm can meet the egg, things will start coming together. Now, sometimes you can actually use the ruling in method to help your ruling out. Ruling out relies on being able to exclude matches not known to be on a particular line. So you can use known matches on other lines to better define the matches that you're going to then exclude. So if you're dividing your matches into the 2 or 3 bucket method, you can actually utilize the 2 or 3 bucket method, depending upon which case it is, to rule out matches. So let's go back for a moment to that tree of Lucy, where she had her first husband who died, and then she had an affair with Arminus that produced my great-great-grandfather. Using the links, the shared matches between these 2 sides of the tree, you can rule in people who are related through Lucy further back in time and people who are descended from Lucy. So that's your first step. The second step is to remove all the matches that are related through Mamie's husband, and then the matches that are related through Edward's wife. So you take out the bottom parts of the tree. And then the third step, you remove the matches that you've ruled in being through Lucy. And so what's left is the people who are related through Arminus. So you can now use the ruling in to excluding the ones from Lucy to find all the people who are related further back on Arminus' side. And so that's how you rule out rather than ruling in. Enough to questions. Lisa?
So you mentioned that making a list of the surnames and the places on someone else's, on a matches tree.
Yes.
Is the list you're working with. Is there an easy way to do that, or do you literally have to write down a name of it?
There was a tool that lets you do that Ancestry put the kibosh on because it was process intensive on their servers. There is another company that's called DNA Genealogical DNAGedcom. They really should have come up with a better name. But DNAGedcom.com can actually harvest your match list off of Ancestry, including tree information. It doesn't get the geography, but it gets the surnames. So it's a subscription that you have to pay for, and you have to have your computer sit on the Ancestry website, scrolling through pages automatically in order to do this. Now, rumor mill, they may be announcing at Roots Tech that Ancestry is possibly, finally going to let us download our match list. There is a rumor to that effect. Whether it turns out to be true or not, we'll see.
If we have Pro Tools.
If you have more than likely, it will be if you have Pro Tools. They want that $10 each month. It's $10 a month. Now, they run specials on that periodically. So I've got mine, I think it's about to expire, this deal, but I got mine that was like $5 for 6 months. $5 a month for 6 months, but still, that's a pretty significant half a year at half price. So if you want to download the matches, but you don't want to have to pay $10 every month, they make it easy for you to subscribe and then unsubscribe to the Pro Tools on a month-by-month basis. So they understand that one you can drop on and off. Your main Ancestry subscription, they want you to keep that active as long as possible, because that's where they actually make more of it.
So we were doing both of those. This isn't exactly about that, but more about your process. You're basically working with a hypothesis. It could be this, it could be this. So I assume you are setting up, you have research trees that are smaller. You can try something, you can move things around, you can throw it away, you can start over. You have things like, the equivalent of question marks. There's got to be somewhere between these two people, but I don't know who it is. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. Now, when I got further along on those two that I'm currently working on, I went ahead and created a woman with unknown given name, with a surname Doster, and put in that she was the child of William and Margaret into my tree on Ancestry, and filled in William and Margaret's Doster's information. I also added the siblings. And then I let their through lines tool do its work in the background. And that's when all of a sudden the small cluster that I had found of large matches, it ballooned into those 55 matches because it found other people I had not yet found in the remaining matches who were descended from William and Margaret. So when you have a theory like that, if you get enough to where you feel safe enough putting it in the tree that nobody will copy it and you later find out that you're wrong, it can actually help out in using through lines to find additional matches.
So if you're doing that in Ancestry, you can create as many trees as you want.
Correct.
To get the advantage of through lines in this other matching, you would need
your DNA linked. Yes, it has to be a public tree, and it has to be the one linked to your DNA.
Okay, so you'd have to, if you got it linked to, you'd have to link it to that.
And I also did the same thing. I felt finally confident enough to do that on the Moore family. And for that, I am assuming that the wife of the wife of Cannon is the great-granddaughter of this couple, because it's enough generations that I feel more confident of being great-granddaughter than granddaughter. So I put in people of unknown sex, because we don't know if Mary's maiden name was Matlin. Could be something entirely different given the number of generations separation from that couple. And when I put that in, that's where it also spit out that there are 70 DNA matches. But like I said, when I look, a lot of those are below 20 centimorgans that I normally wouldn't consider. But there were a few that were above 20 centimorgans that I used to start to find the cluster. So it's like I said, it's building a case, but I don't like to rely on really small matches if I can get away with it. They tend to be more unreliable. But the sheer number of them kind of makes it, yeah, this is looking like it's a good thing. So out of the remaining matches, I'm now trying to find other clusters that might also be related to Mary to see if I can figure out how they're related to the Matlocks and maybe see if I can figure out the tree for Mary. Figure out which family she came from.
It's a common select.
Okay, depends upon how you want to look at it. If through line says that you're connected, there's a good chance that yes, that is the correct, that there is a familial connection. The problem is that does not mean that's the path the DNA took, because you may have another ancestor further back in time that both of you don't know about, and that's where the DNA came from. Especially when it's a smaller match, a smaller segment of DNA, those segments can go much further back in time. So always do your due diligence. I don't trust the through lines trees until I try to find records that back it up and make sure that the person who entered that in their tree knew what they were talking about. So I try to find a census record or a marriage license that confirms, okay, yes, this couple got married and they lived here and they had these children. So I do a prima facie check of their research. There are a lot of people that just add willy-nilly, and you can't always trust, because I have found mistakes in through lines. But in general, it's an excellent tool for finding additional people who may be connected through a particular DNA line.
And that's why you're putting it out, because you keep your
My master tree.
production tree is not ancestry.
Correct.
Okay.
I periodically upload a new tree, or I will do a manual edit on the tree at Ancestry. But my master tree, I keep on my machine at home, synced to a couple of cloud services for backup purposes. Because, gee, boy, losing that would be really bad. But I don't like to keep the master tree on Ancestry because it's too difficult for me to work quickly to add information and do what's known as a quick and dirty tree, which is just a tree that you're experimenting with. I don't like having that in my master tree up there because people may think, oh, this tree is gospel. I'm going to add this to my tree, even though I'm just theorizing. So I don't like to corrupt the tree that I put up there.
So what you using for your master tree?
I use a Mac only program called Reunion.
What is it?
Reunion is the name of the software. It's made by a company, Reunion.
Oh, Reunion.
Yeah, like a family reunion.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's made by,
Can that work in my app? I mean, on my laptop?
yeah, if you have a Mac,
Apple laptop?
yeah, it runs on Macs only. It doesn't have a PC version.
Buy Android, Legend be the.
Legend is a good one. There's Roots Magic. Family Tree Maker is very popular. Legacy. So it really just whatever program I would try out multiple ones. If you can get the trial versions before you have to buy, try the trial versions.
I was just gonna say, Roots Tech, if the past is any indication, Roots Magic always has a special, as does Family Tree Maker.
Yes.
During Roots Tech. So if you go to the Expo Hall in Roots Tech, online Expo Hall in Roots Tech, go check out all the specials. And you may find it for discount.
On Family Tree Maker, do you have any rumors about whether that new edition that we paid for last year is coming?
Well, the issue with that, I'm not from, no, I don't know if a lot of you know about the history of Family Tree Maker, but it was bought by a company called Mac Kiev, which based on the name, you might guess where it's located. It's located in Ukraine. And they're having a bit of an issue right now. So yeah, I personally was not one of the ones that has paid. I have Family Tree Maker, an older version. I didn't pay for the upgrade, and I'm now kind of glad that I didn't because it has not yet released that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I bought both Family Tree Maker and Roots Magic last year for about half price and below half price.
Mhm.
Really reasonably priced programs to try them both out and found a clear winner, so for what I like. So.
Found what?
Hmm?
You found what?
I found a clear winner. I like one much better than the other, but I'm coming from the Master Genealogist, which is an old program, probably better than almost anything out there.
Yeah, Master
My
Genealogist
opinion.
it was pretty good.
Oh,
But it did, yeah, you're right. It didn't have any DNA
It has
features.
support and it's dying, so I had to move my stuff in order to save it.
Did you upgrade to 14?
Just recently, actually, yes. It kept begging me, and I finally got around to it.
You mentioned when you were doing that, I think it was the first example, you were able to get 8 matches that were over 20 centimorgans and had a tree.
Right.
How many didn't have a tree? It sounds like that's.
There were a lot of them that don't. I mean, that's you have to consider that most people that test their DNA at Ancestry are doing so for their ethnicity pie chart. They don't care much about the genealogy aspect of it, and if they have a tree, it usually is not very big. Oftentimes, they only put in living people, and therefore it shows as private, and they don't link it to their DNA. So
I tripped over one that had 3 people, and I went, well, that's better than nothing. It was the living person and their 2 living parents, and all it said was unknown person, and it's like, that doesn't mean.
right. So, I mean, it's like, at least put your grandparent or your great-grandparent, somebody that will appear in a census record in, and is dead. But
They have about 15 living people in it. We had one person in the list with a name, no date, but I figured out it didn't work.
that, I mean, I have had those kind of things where if the name is unique enough, you can sometimes find it. And one of the other things that people don't think about, look at the name of the tree, because that oftentimes will give you the clue about the surname. If you're seeing people that are just unknown or living and hidden as private, sometimes the name of the tree can give away the name of the person who's the home person. Because they oftentimes, if their name is George Smith, will fill in their name, George Smith's family tree. So even though it says private for the person that's the home person, you still have a name to at least work from.
You use that 20 centimorgans, and I think, well, 8 is probably where I would cut off.
Well, yeah, you don't want to go below 8.
8?
8.
Numerous the valleys that are down in that range. Of
The-
8 to
Well,
12.
okay, the reason that I use 20 is that I have a lot of endogamy, especially in my mom's side in Tennessee, where there was only maybe a few dozen families that moved into this particular area. And just over time, through intermarriage, everybody is related to everybody else through, hey, you're a 5th cousin or something like that. So you tend to increase the number of matches you have because of that, because there's greater chances of the DNA reaching you through one of those multiple paths. But it makes things a lot more complicated, let me tell you. But what's my train of thought from over here? Repeat the question again, just to make sure I'm making the threshold. So when you have endogamy, the 8 centimorgan threshold is not enough. Because it could come from many different sources. At 20 centimorgans, the reason I use that, at 20 centimorgans, there is a 99.9% chance that that match is a legitimate match to you. The probability of it being a false match is practically nothing. It's pretty good at 15. I know a lot of people that use 15 as their cutoff as the initial part. I don't, like I said, because of endogamy. The more endogamy you have, the higher you want to set as your initial threshold. But then as you do more and more work and confirm more and more of the matches as being legitimate, then you can start dropping down the threshold that you're using and start adding those other people in and say, okay, yes, these are legitimate people. I have about 126,000. The only people that I know of who have more than me are Ashkenazi Jewish persons. That was actually kind of a thing that I didn't realize until very later in my DNA testing, when I started talking with other people. And they're showing me their match list, and they have 30,000 matches. Now, this was before Ancestry. Ancestry used to go down to a smaller level. They used to go down, I think, to 7. At that point, when they were down at 7, I had like 190,000 matches. I was matching 1% of their database, almost. I mean, just below 1%. So I was actually kind of one of those that didn't mind so much when they upped the threshold a little bit. But yeah, you want to be careful. The more endogamy you have on a line, the higher threshold you use.
When they upped that threshold, it took so many away. And I went through and put comments.
Yes, that's a way to have saved them. Or just put one color dot. I mean, I do have on some lines, I created a special color dot for small segment research and added ones that I thought were going to be relevant. But yeah, it's.
I'd like to convince them to, because that also affected in your shared matches what you could see, and I'd like to see them put that limit lower, and I don't know where it might be.
Well, like I said, the problem though with the really small matches below 8 centimorgans is that yes, you may have a common ancestor that you can find, but the DNA may be 20 generations back to an ancestor that far. You're not going to get that far back to trace where the DNA is. You can confirm that, yes, you have a connection, but that's not necessarily the path the DNA took. So I prefer to try to confirm the DNA, what path the DNA took to find that common ancestor. But then again, like I said, I have the overabundance of matches and I've tested like 60 something people. So I have so many matches. I mean, I'm never going to get to them all in my lifetime. But having all of those is helpful because when you have people who are first cousins or second cousins to each other tested, their shared matches, the things that are in common with, help out a lot in doing a lot of filtering.
Go ahead.
I noticed that like your relatives use different testing, 23andMe and a couple of others, right? Can 23andMe share with Ancestry or only MyHeritage or?
Okay, 23andMe, I don't think you can, you can't upload to Ancestry and you can't upload to 23andMe. 23andMe allowed it, I think, once back in the past, but they've never done so again.
You don't allow you to upload through.
Right. So if you want to be in Ancestries or you want to be in 23andMe, you have to take their test. MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA, you can upload your raw file from any of the other testing companies to those companies and be in their database. You may have to pay a small fee to unlock the additional features, but you can do it. And the unlock, I think MyHeritage, is it a free unlock that they're having for Roots Tech? I know that they've announced. So, okay, so I think MyHeritage has a free upload period that they're doing right now for Roots Tech. So if you're interested in having MyHeritage subscription or just join MyHeritage on a free plan, I think right now you can upload your DNA for free.
Are you working in MyHeritage then and not Ancestry?
I work in both. I have tested it people at Family Tree because they have the Y-DNA, Ancestry because it's the largest database, MyHeritage because I like some of their tools quite a bit.
Get more hints.
You get more hints. One of the things that I'm not fond of 23andMe. They've kind of abandoned genealogists. There was a period where 23andMe was not allowed to do their reports stuff because the FDA was cracking down on some of this as pseudoscience. During that time period, genealogists helped keep 23andMe afloat. And then as soon as they were able to do those reports again for their medical research, they kind of stopped supporting the genealogy community and have not really added much in terms of features for genealogists since, and have actually taken away some of them after they had their data breach. Some of those features have been turned off and never turned back on. So 23andMe, I have a complicated relationship with. I'm the only person though that I've tested at 23. Most of my testing was done at MyHeritage. I mean, at Ancestry and Family Tree, and then I transfer to MyHeritage.
And now, MyHeritage, I just had my Family Tree DNA quit doing their trees. And
Yes.
went to
MyHeritages.
I had stopped MyHeritage before because they were charging by the size of the tree.
Yes.
So Family Tree DNA didn't have a tree capability anymore. I had to upload it to MyHeritage, and now I'm getting, you exceeded our 250 members.
Yes, you have to be on a free, on your free account, you have a limit of the 250. You have to have a paid plan in order to exceed that.
But what was the issue with Ancestry?
No, Family Tree. Family Tree is no longer supporting trees, that you have to use a MyHeritage tree. And given the level of development of, we're on the third iteration of trees at MyHeritage. It's always been kludgy. It's always been slow. It's always been difficult to use. So in some sense, this is a huge improvement that the trees will be handled through MyHeritage, who is a much more robust tree system. But you're more likely to be.
What are they going to do with the large tree now? Other than building.
There was some sort of provision for that they were going to grandfather those in that were transferred, I thought. But I haven't read up on the details of that because I don't use Family Tree as much anymore, simply because their database is so small. It's mainly for the Y-DNA.
Really what I'm trying to test there. But I'm not sure how much they're wanting now for the size of the tree.
No, well, it's just, I think you just even have to have the basic MyHeritage subscription. Because I think there are like 4 levels or 3 levels of membership MyHeritage. I'm not familiar as much with the MyHeritage plans because back in like 2017 or 2018, they had a special where you could buy the highest tier highest tier membership plan. And as long as you kept it, you got the same price for life. And I just make sure that I pay that one every year because it's less than my Ancestry DNA costs per year, my Ancestry membership. And it's worth it because of all the records and the free hints that they have there too.
Well, I remember this one. They first told me that after I transferred from Ancestry to them, and they came back with a bill for, I think it was over $300. because of the size of the tree. And.
Oh, that's
at that point,
outrageous.
I called them up and talked to them, and I ended up taking my DNA and my tree off of my heritage.
Wow.
And I was ready to tell Family Tree DNA that if that's the only place to keep the tree, then I'm not gonna have a tree there either. Because I don't.
Well, you
intend
can't
to
anymore.
Pay that kind of,
My Family Tree, I think they've already turned off the ability to create any new trees.
yes.
So any that are there are going to be ported over to the MyHeritage.
The size of the tree, they should be paying me for having that.
Well, and
resource
that's-
out there for other people.
Yes, and that's the thing that always gets me about Ancestry is that you can create a tree for free, but you don't get to see other people's trees unless you're a member. And you are providing them with a ton of information that they're basically reselling through their membership.
People, I think a lot of people don't realize, like on Ancestry, how much of this stuff is really a function of what other people are doing with people that have similar names to your family's name. And it's like, well, they're going through combing every record.
No, no.
The algorithm, no.
No. I've seen people who have done things that if their tree is correct, would be illegal in every state in the union because it's incestuous. Because they incorrectly added people to the tree and have people where it's like they're marrying their sibling and the child is marrying an aunt and uncle. Yeah, so.
So another thought as I was watching that, even if you've got not quite as difficult a situation as you were describing, thinking about conceptually ruling in and ruling out. So I was thinking of simple things like when I was trying to track down great grandfather and whether that was truly the case, and being able to use this idea that, well, if these people that I found over here are related to me and to another cousin, but not to one of our half cousins through the great grandmother, then the connection needs to be through our great grandfather, which is not their great grandfather. We have the common, so it's sort of, I mean, it strikes me, it's a sort of same ways. You're trying to make your way back. It's like, okay, I gotta, just the basics, like half of these people go away because this is my mom's life. And they're all on my dad's side, right off the bat.
Mhm. Yeah, process of elimination. I mean, it works.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, in my experience, they don't like half relationships because, oh, they make things so much more complicated. No, they allow you to isolate to a single individual rather than a couple.
It's like, this actually makes it easier,
Mhm.
because now I know it's gotta come through my grandmother, not through my great
The
grandfather.
Lucy issue, that was my COVID project. When everything was kind of locked down, I went nuts. That's where I found basically how Lucy, through her first husband, had over 80 DNA tested descendants, and then tried to figure out, okay, who were Lucy's parents? Because Smith, it's the most common surname in the United States. Finding the right Smith, because I had no idea who Lucy's parents were. So using this method of ruling in on the 2-bucket method, because she had all these children from her first marriage, if they matched my people on my side through the affair she had with the married man after her husband died, anybody that I can't place as a descendant has to be related ancestrally. Just a fact of the matter. And so I was able to find Lucy had a set of sisters that she was like one of 6 daughters of this one couple. And the only way I could get the DNA sizes to work is if all of these women were sisters, and they were all born in the 1810s and 1820s. They went from Georgia to Tennessee And some of them crossed over from the Tennessee line. They lived on basically a county that was on the state line into southern Virginia. And it all lined up if you say that these women were sisters. I don't have a single piece of paper that indicates they are sisters. But I have now almost 500 DNA matched descendants of these women. I mean, it's enormous. I mean, these families were huge. I mean, approaching 500 DNA matches just from a great, 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 great grandparent is insane.
Well, that ability, and that's when I was starting to figure out, don't do this on the computer. And that's weird for me to say, but grab some small Post-its and start moving them around, because you can go, this DNA, my DNA match to this person, or these people's match to this person. There's only a limited number of places they can be, add their dates of birth, and it's like, they can't be in a, they have to be in, you know, they have to be down the line. They were born out of order.
This is where,
whatever, but you move them around and you say, okay, I'm gonna build a hypothesis.
exactly. This is also where DNApainter.com's shared centimorgan tool comes into play. You enter in that centimorgan value, and it highlights the relationships that are possible with that DNA value. And you start using multiple ones of those, and you start saying, oh, this can't be this relationship, because then these two people would be third cousins, but they're sharing 800 centimorgans. So it can't be that relationship. So, I mean, you have to kind of play around with the numbers. Another tool I like to use when I'm doing those quick and dirty trees, if it's not something I want to enter yet into Reunion, there's a program out there called Draw.io, which I think is available for both Mac and PC, that it's a diagramming tool. And you can create little bubbles and you can move them around and have connectors, lines between them to kind of show the relationships and move them around, just like you're saying with the Post-it notes. Dry erase board that you can do that on. I've seen people do that. So play around with it to kind of theorize how these people might be related, and then see if everything else starts falling into place. And when it does, then you know, okay, this is probably how they're connected.
Any questions online?
No questions online, they're very quiet.
Yeah, I think my mom and dad were in there. They had their camera on for a while, and my dad was like leaning, he's like, "You want the camera on?"
Okay, well, let's let me jump on again, and thank you, Craig, as always. Very informative. The other thing Craig mentioned about the leads method, I believe Craig talked about that a little over a year ago, and I believe that's up on our YouTube channel. There are several other really good, you can find, is it Dana Leeds is her name. Leeds is nothing special. It's just her last name. It's not some weird DNA thing. And DNAwithDana.com. But you can also find several things that out there to show you how to do that. And it is a very, very useful tool. So we do. Well, they can be checked out if you're a member, after saying that almost everything is available to non-members. Checking out books from our library are in fact a member-only privilege. For those of you here in the Wickers building, Jimmy, who is our librarian, has brought a couple down, and you can take a look at them. But tomorrow or Saturday, you can wander into the library and take a look at what we have. There are a lot of good DNA presentations on Roots Tech coming up, so don't miss those. Gabby.
presentation on our YouTube channel in the chat, so they should go in the chat.
Perfect. All right, well, another good meeting. We do not have our April meeting scheduled yet. We're going to be working on that, but we will have April, May, and June. We've also got the Sno-Isle Library presentation, so check their calendar out, and we'll message those out ourselves and all. So let's go ahead and let the Zoomers go, and those of us here, we can get our final brownie and our final cup of coffee, and we can hit the road. So thank you, everybody.